You're listening to the Balanced Educator Podcast, episode number 95. Welcome to the Balanced Educator. We're your hosts, Kaylee
and Josiane from Educalm. Our intention is to equip and empower you to feel more calm, balanced, and joyful in all aspects of your life.
Hello there and welcome. We are so happy to have you here today. On today's episode, we are going to be bringing on Katelyn McGuffin, one of our Educalm ambassadors who's been using Educalm Classroom in her kindergarten and grade 2 classrooms for a year and a half now. So we've had lots of great feedback from you guys where you've told us that you really like when we have teachers on the show that talk about how they are using Educalm Classroom in their classrooms, and that you really like hearing how teachers are using this at different grade levels as well. So we're going to be bringing you more episodes like this in the future, and really excited to kick it off with Katelyn today. But before we get into the episode, we would love to share today's sponsor, Breathe for Change. Breathe for Change is a movement to enhance the health and well-being of teachers, students, and entire school communities. They offer the world's only 200-hour wellness, SEL, and yoga teacher training specifically for educators. If you haven't already listened to our episode number 88, where I interviewed the founder of Breathe for Change, Dr. Ilana Nankin, you have to go check it out. It is so inspiring to hear her story and how and why she created Breathe for Change. Applications for this year's Breathe for Change 200-hour wellness and yoga teacher training specifically for educators is now open. Through the training, you'll be equipped and empowered to enhance your own well-being and integrate mindfulness and social-emotional learning into your classroom and community. Upon graduating their flagship training, you will be eligible to receive 2 certifications. One is the internationally recognized Yoga Alliance 200-hour yoga teacher certification, and the other is Breathe for Change's Wellness Champion certification. If you're committed to using wellness as a vehicle for social change and you want to join an incredible community of thousands of like-minded leaders, then join the Breathe for Change movement and check out their trainings. Go to www.breatheforchange.com/balanced. Again, that's breatheforchange.com/balanced. All right, let's go to the interview with Katelyn, where she's going to give you a behind-the-scenes look at how she teaches mindfulness in her classroom using Educalm Classroom. Hello there and welcome. We are so excited to have you here with us today. On today's episode of the Balanced Educator Podcast, we are so excited to bring one of our ambassadors, Katelyn McGuffin, onto the show to give you a behind-the-scenes look of how she teaches mindfulness and social-emotional learning in her kindergarten and grade 2 classrooms using Educalm Classroom. We've had some feedback from you guys saying that you really like hearing how other teachers are teaching mindfulness in their classrooms, how they're using our program, and you're really liking hearing how different teachers are doing this at different grade levels. So we're listening. We're going to bring more episodes like this to you, and we're really excited to kick it off this week with Katelyn. Before we jump into that awesome interview, we are so excited to share this week's sponsor, Breathe for Change. Breathe for Change is a movement to enhance the health and well-being of teachers, students, and entire school communities. They offer the world's only 200-hour wellness, SEL, and yoga teacher training specifically for educators. If you haven't already listened to episode number 88 of the podcast, where I interviewed the founder of Breathe for Change, Dr. Ilana Nankin, you have to go give it a listen. Her story and the story of how Breathe for Change came to be is so inspiring, and it's definitely going to make you want to go check out their 200-hour yoga teacher training specifically for educators. So Breathe for Change's 2020 applications for their trainings are now open. Through the training, you'll be equipped and empowered to enhance your own well-being and integrate mindfulness and social emotional learning into your classroom and community. Upon graduating their flagship training, you'll be eligible to receive 2 certifications: the internationally recognized Yoga Alliance 200-hour yoga teacher certification and Breathe for Change's Wellness Champion certification. If you're committed to using wellness as a vehicle for social change and you want to join an incredible community of thousands of like-minded leaders, then join the Breathe for Change movement and check out the trainings near you at www.breatheforchange.com/balanced. Again, that's breatheforchange.com/balanced. All right, let's get into this awesome interview with Katelyn McGuffin, one of our Educalm classroom ambassadors, who's going to share how she's teaching mindfulness and social emotional learning using Educalm Classroom in her kindergarten and grade 2 classes. Hello there, Katelyn. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Could you introduce yourself to our audience? I'm so excited for them to meet you.
I am a elementary school teacher. I'm teaching at a school in South Winnipeg right now, and I'm working with kindergarten and grade 2 this year.
Awesome. So kindergarten and grade 2, the cute little guys.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun, and also like it requires a lot of your big heart and a lot of energy, right?
Yeah, I tend to be a very energetic person. So this is a good fit for me. I have lots of energy for the job.
That's so fun. So you are one of our Educalm ambassadors, and we love having you as part of our team and our community because you're such a role model teacher. So we wanted to have you here to just chat a little bit about how you're using Educalm Classroom in your classroom, especially with the little guys that you're with. People often ask us whether Educalm Classroom is a good fit for kindergarten, and I think you're going to have a lot to share about that. So first things first, could you tell us what brought you to Educalm Classroom? Like, what was the challenge you were facing in your classroom before you decided to start using our program?
For sure. The experience that I had was that I've been in the classroom for about 6 years now, and I had experiences with yoga and knew that I wanted to bring that kind of mindfulness into our classroom. And then I couldn't really find the perfect resource. I found lots of little snippets of things, pieces on the internet, little pieces of a breathing practice here and a breathing practice there. And when I did find a good one, the kids would get bored of it because I would love it so much. And then we'd use it over and over again. So there wasn't enough variety in what I was finding. And the things that I was finding that were a perfect fit, there was only those little pieces. So when I did find things that were either for older kids with different language, or I needed something more simplified for kindergarten, those things tended to be challenging to find enough of a variety of really interesting things for them to bring this practice into, have it consistent every day. So when I found out about your program, I was very excited and was one of those super enthusiastic applicants to your ambassador program who was like, pick me, I need this. And then was very committed to practicing it all last year because it was something that I felt there was so many things that I could use with my kids that it was amazing.
That's awesome. So Educalm Classroom, could you explain, like, within your words, what is Educalm Classroom for someone that maybe has no idea what it is?
So when I first opened the program over the summer, I looked at it ahead of time, wanting to know which modules and kind of which themes were in there. As a kindergarten teacher, there's lots of theme teaching in our classrooms. So I kind of went through a few of the audios and the Educalm program provides you with amazing audios that you can use all year, and there's so many that I have not gotten through all of them with children yet. So that's a huge bonus that I have the flexibility to pick the ones that I think are going to work with our themes and then move through the program as I needed. It's not structured in a way that you have to follow through step by step by step. You can bounce around and pick different pieces that work really well. And then there's videos now and different pieces for lesson planning that you can access that always relate back to that mindful practice. So all those resources are in there, which is an amazing tool for teachers.
Awesome. So could you explain to me, what does it look like in your classroom using this? Like, what's the routine? If someone were to come into your classroom and observe you doing this, like, what does it look like?
Yeah, if you came into my classroom, you'd see that all last year I taught 2 kindergarten classes. So I had the benefit of having a mindful practice twice a day because I got to do it once with each class.
Nice.
And that was really nice. It was the thing that brought us all together at our morning meeting. So we would do on our schedule, it was built into our schedule, and I have announcements in O Canada, and we kind of start the day and take attendance, and then we'd start right away with our mindful practice. So the kids know what's coming. It's kind of a comforting way to start their day in the classroom. They know they're going to have a chance to relax and be centered and follow a mindful practice. So all last year, we did that right before we would do our circle, and then our morning meeting in circle would happen, whether it was morning or afternoon, and that would either be something about whatever we're doing in the classroom, or it would be specifically joint to our meditation. So if they were talking about, there's a whole module on emotions that the kids love talking about, and in kindergarten they have such like vivid high emotions that they want to share about those often. So we would often return to those ones throughout the year. And so if it was about emotions in the recording, then we would pass our talking stick around and they would all get a chance to share how they were feeling that day. And then as we went throughout the year, it would get more specific. So I'd talk about, do you remember a time when you felt really upset or sad or mad? And then what did you do? And if it was not a great outcome from that, we can talk about the different ways to use the strategies to help regulate and help overcome those big, big feelings in a 5-year-old.
That's so great. So you talked before about how before you found Educalm Classroom, you couldn't seem to find a resource that was consistent. What's the difference that you've noticed in your students between when you were doing it less consistently versus using Educalm Classroom?
The beautiful thing about the Educalm Classroom is that it's got so much variety that they're intrigued every time. I know that, and from what Educalm kind of led us or guided us to do, was to use one of the recordings for about a week straight with the little kids so they had time to go over it. There's been times where I've used them longer than a week straight just because of the French Immersion and the vocabulary, and we would do it in English a couple times and then a couple times in French, which was another huge benefit of Educalm, was that they're identical, like to a T, that I can flip my little 5-year-olds who are still learning French from the English meditation for a couple days into the French one and say, listen for these keywords. You know what they're saying because you listened to it in English for the last 3 days. So that's been perfect. But they flip over into French really easily. But they also have the variety to keep them interested for an extended period of time. So instead of me overusing one little breathing practice that's a perfect fit for kindergarten that I found on the internet, I now have a whole year's worth and can use them over and over again. And like kids, just like they like a really good book and they want to read it again and again, they'll ask me for certain ones. Can you please put that one on again today? And I go, yep, okay, we'll go back to that one.
Which one is one of the favorites for kinders?
They love the turtle where he overcomes different obstacles. And I think that's like a perfect simplistic way to show kindergartens that those little obstacles they run into during the day, they can get around them and take a breath like the little turtle and get around the rock or get across the river. They like that because of the story too. And they really enjoy the one about clouds because I let them all lay down, and I usually put a Google image of beautiful blue skies with swirly white clouds on. They like looking at that and laying there pretending, even in the middle of the winter, that we're out in a beautiful field with a beautiful sky.
That's so awesome. So these audios in Educalm Classroom are either 2 or 5 minutes long. Most of them are 5 minutes. We've just started adding more 2-minute audios. Can you tell me how that looks for kindergartners? Like, are they able to sit through a 5-minute practice? What does that look like?
Sure, they are. It doesn't look like the picture you would take of a meditation in your head. There's a lot of squirming around and wiggling and moving. But I do believe that with practice, generally they can sit. And I know when we started with Educom a year ago, we didn't have those 2-minute practices. So I was full blown doing the 5 minutes and running along. And at the beginning, I would have had the same feedback and said, like, yeah, we really need some shorter ones for 2 minutes because they were hard in the beginning. But the more we practiced, the more it became normalized that it would be that length of time, that it would be 5 minutes. And so I know when the 2 minutes came out, I was, of course, we'll try them out. We'll see how it goes. And I don't actually use them for my formal practice anymore. We use our 5-minute ones still in kindergarten because they were so used to it that when I did use the 2 minutes at the end of last year, I had kids looking at me so shocked that it was over, and I'm not done breathing. They were so offended that I had shortened their practice. So
That's so cute.
Yeah, I would have kids be like, that was a short one. That's not fair. And I go, oh, okay, well, if you're not done, you're welcome to keep breathing. But I felt I had kind of set them off in that way. So I use those 2-minute ones really strategically, that they're after a recess break and we need to reset for 2 minutes, or they're after a big assembly where we've seen the whole school and we're all hyped up. So I use them more as a reset, and then I've continued using our 5-minute practices. And by the end of last year, both my kindergarten classes, although they were wiggly, can actually sit through 5 minutes and expected to sit for that long. And we're able to really benefit from a 5-minute practice. So
that's awesome. So speaking of the benefits, what have you noticed so you did this all last year and you're doing it again this school year. What are you noticing are some of the benefits of using Educalm Classroom with your students? What are you noticing that they're gaining from doing these practices?
I think there's lots of benefits for sure. The biggest ones that I see are self-regulation in young children who are able to tell me how their body's feeling because we've explored those emotions specifically in formal practice. And then when they're excited or upset or however they're feeling, after, like, I've had a little kid after gym class be like, I'm too excited to go back to class. I need to breathe. And for him to be able to express, one, how he's feeling and have a strategy in his pocket already is amazing. So those kinds of things that we can give kids, which is going to relate to the rest of his life, he's going to be able to say, yeah, I need a minute to breathe and move on from something, is going to help when we see struggles in transitions, when we see struggles with big emotions, when we see struggles after, the intense friendships that have broken down over recess. Those kinds of things are giving those kids the skills to self-regulate. The other thing that I find is a huge benefit to my classroom is the beginning module is a lot of techniques for understanding how your brain actually works and how attention works and how to really learn. So it's hard for kinders to focus when you tell them focus, focus, focus. Instead, it's giving them concrete tools to understand how they might build that focus. So there's a module where you talk about the flashlight. So I actually use that term now later on when I want all the eyes on one space and the kids understand, oh, we have to focus in on this because it's like a flashlight in the night. I should only be seeing one thing right now. So if that's with a kindergarten calendar and I'm saying, okay, turn on your mind flashlight, point it over here, and then we count together, I have way more attention and way more engagement because they've kind of practiced over and over again how to do that in their own heads.
That's wonderful. It's so nice to hear that because that was our intention. So it's nice to know that even with these young kids that you're seeing those changes. So then that brings me to the next question, which is, have you noticed any changes academically by taking the time to do mindfulness? Because sometimes teachers think, oh, I have so much to do in my classroom. I don't have time to do mindfulness, because there's so much to do academically. What would you say to that?
I think there's great ways to teach academically across the board. However, I have found that I've got more time to actually teach academics because I'm not worried or I'm not managing my classroom as often as I used to. So I'm much better off in the sense that I can easily reset my class quickly because when they're elevated and excited or we're not on task, I can put my hand on my heart and my belly and say 5 breaths and breathe with them instead of, okay, look over here, okay, this, and trying to gather their attention in different ways. And that also sets them off for better learning for our learning centers. So after we do our morning meeting, I send kids out into learning centers and we kind of all agree on kind of I don't know if it's a mantra or a saying at the end of breathing, but like that in kindergarten when we breathe, we're calm and ready to learn. And they all have that kind of setting before they go out into their learning centers. And then I feel I have more time to work on those academics because they all know, yep, we're on task. Yep, we're learning. Yep, our brains are ready. There's almost like the excuses are all muted because they know, okay, we did it. We're ready. And away they go.
That's great. Could you give me an example of something concrete that you use that you've learned from Educalm Classroom and your students have learned from Educalm Classroom that helps you with classroom management?
Yeah, I use a chime tool to bring their attention often, and we've talked a lot about in the 5 senses, it talks about hearing that whole sound and listening to the end of a chime or the end of a sound. And so instead of just ringing and expecting them all to listen, we kind of built that in that when I do ring it, you have to listen for when I end it. So I can put my hand on it and end the sound right away, or I can let it ring and gather everyone's attention and then stop it, or using breaths whenever we need to. So it's an easy reset to just say, oh, we're taking 3 breaths. And even if kids aren't there for the first breath because they're chatting or something, it's that collective breath that really brings everyone back together and resets. And then we're back on task in a matter of seconds instead of, what could take minutes and minutes to get back onto task.
That's great. I love that. I haven't heard of anyone using the chime themselves in the classroom and linking it to the chime audio for in the 5 senses unit for the listening audio. I love that you connected those dots. So thank you for sharing that. I could see a lot of teachers kind of taking that and borrowing it from your toolkit. That's great.
It was definitely something I already had in my classroom. And then I went, oh, I know exactly what they're talking about. Look at it, rings forever. And getting kids to actually listen to that is a really interesting tool.
That's great. So what do you think from your experience, why would it be important to start a mindfulness practice with students at such a young age? Why not start when they're a little bit older and can, maybe grasp it better?
I don't think they need to be older to grasp it better. The kids are so in tune with their emotions right then and there when they're 5 years old and younger. They know how they're feeling and they often can tell you after going through a few emotion lessons with them, they know how they're feeling. But I think it gives them the tools that they need to not feel like those emotions take them out of control. So we talk a lot about how those emotions line up with the zones of regulation and getting back to that green zone where we're ready to learn. And often the tool that they'll pick is to breathe. So I've got a whole bucket by my corner there that they often use for breathing tools or they use for things to self-regulate and calm down, kind of a kit. But often we don't need those tools when they've already got 5-finger breathing that they've learned from Educalm, or they just know that I need a couple seconds to calm down, and I usually see them sitting in the corner breathing. So different things like that.
That's awesome. Could you tell me what you have in your Calm Corner kit or your Calm kit?
Yeah, I I have posters on the wall behind them, right underneath our Educalm posters. So we have 5-finger breathing, and then I've changed out the sayings and I read them to them as we go throughout the modules that are provided with the program. And then underneath I have, if you know, the Kelso strategies with the little frog, but he has choices to make better decisions.
Oh, I actually haven't heard of that. Can you explain it?
Yeah, so Kelso's choices are a young age program for solving small problems. So not if someone's hurt or anything, that's a big problem, but we talk about small and big. And then there's a wheel, and there's about 9 choices that Kelso the frog can make when he has a problem. So we act them out, and there's different ways to teach the kids those strategies, but one is to wait and cool down, and one is to walk away, and one is to go to a different game or make a deal or apologize, and all these things can help solve that little problem. So often we talk about, like, you have to try 2 of Kelso's choices before you get an adult to help you with something. So they'll come to me and say, oh, he took my toy, and I'll commiserate with the child and say, yes, I know that's upsetting. Do you want to, like, I give them the option to choose a choice or go talk to Kelso about the problem. I have a little stuffed frog there that they talk to sometimes. And then they'll decide whether they're going to go and like ask to take turns, or if they're going to go to a different game and play somewhere else, or if they're going to go and apologize. Oh, I didn't know you wanted to play with it. Sorry. Can I have a turn or whatever? So it kind of gives them some strategies right there on the wall. And then right there in the bin, I have the stuffed frog that they talk to sometimes. And I have a couple books that we've made that are just emotions, and some of the posters from Educalm, the 5 strategies at the beginning, are in there as a little book. They can flip through those. There's some face cards to show feelings. There's sand timers in a sparkle jar, and I can't think what else is in. I think there's a couple smooth stones if you wanted to hold on to, some fidget tools. Yeah.
That's great. Wow, I love that. So how does Educalm Classroom affect you or support you as the teacher?
It's nice because I have a couple moments before we really start our day all together with the kids to see how they're feeling, which sometimes is really evident in kindergarten when they're super squirmy or they're clearly upset, or I've had one little kid almost fall asleep. Like knowing those just by being able to have a couple minutes to assess my class, take attendance, and then sit for our formal practice is a beautiful thing for a teacher to have, kind of that reset at the beginning of their day. And then it's given me strategies dealing with my own life and breathing and embracing more of my own yoga practice and those kinds of things.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. So I'd love to know, do you have any stories of maybe students that you've seen a lot of progress in them thanks to what they've been learning in Educalm Classroom? Like, where were they at the beginning of the year, and where did they get to by the end of the year by using these practices?
I don't have a specific child in mind, but any kindergarten teacher would tell you that there's huge social emotional learning in that first year of school, that it's a pretty special space for those kids to start their first education process, and that a lot of them are leaving their parents for the first time sometimes, or if they haven't been to a daycare or anything before, it's the first like kind of separation from mom and dad. So there are big emotions with that, and like feeling safe is a huge thing. So I think this kind of gives them the space to see that there are tools and ways to get by and like cope with those feelings, but that we're actually taking the time to recognize those feelings too and say, yeah, that's understandable. I would miss mom too if I was at school all day and she was at work. But, you know, reconfirming that you'll see them at the end of the day, and that, you know, they love you because you're here and you're learning, and they sent you to school so that you have great stories to tell them when you get home about your day, those kinds of things. But after a formal practice like with Educalm, it gives everyone a moment to be kind of centered and think about those things, but also share them with the class. And often when we go around and I talk about, okay, so you listened to everyone in our circle, you know which friends are feeling sad today and which friends might need a hug or might need you to invite them to play to feel better. And they kind of take that on themselves that, oh, I know that you said you were sad. Do you want to play with me? And there's always friends around them then, oh, I'll give you a hug. And they've got different ideas of what's going to make each other feel better. But it builds this huge classroom community that I wouldn't have had in the past because they're responding to each other's needs and emotions more than one teacher trying to console all the kids.
Oh my God, that gave me goosebumps and I want to cry. That's so amazing and beautiful that, you're guiding them and creating that amazing community. And I think that's something really powerful with the program that we encourage teachers to take that time to share afterwards. That community gets really strong in the classroom with that. So thank you so much for sharing. So how do you think that your teaching, maybe your practices or even your outlook on teaching, has changed since you've been using Educalm Classroom?
I think, like I was just saying, it gives me that background knowledge of where the kids are coming from when they enter my classroom. So if they are missing mom and dad, or if they're, having struggles at home, and if they have the space and feel comfortable, they're sharing that. So it kind of gives you a bit more feedback on where your class is at emotionally and what they're ready for that day. And you can be flexible that way and change what's coming up. Or if you see a need, my story time often changes at the end of the day because, we found out that so-and-so's got a grandma who's sick. Well, I'll pull a different book and read about family or talk about, the different things that we can do with memories for grandparents. And it changes how I respond to my class because I know more about where my background is coming from.
That's great. Thank you. So I'd love to know if there's someone that's listening to this that's kind of on the fence about whether they should get Educalm Classroom for their own classroom. What would you say to them?
I would say that it's been the most consistent tool that I've found out there. There's huge benefits for anyone who's teaching French and English because the French Immersion program that I run needs that integration. And the fact that the program comes in French and English is huge to me. I have not found that anywhere else. It also gives me the entire program to look through for where my themes are going to line up for the year. It's perfect for planning a whole year because I know what's coming and in February we always do Valentine's Day and hearts and kindness, so I'll leave that compassion module till then and I can plan for that. I think it's definitely the most consistent thing I've found, and it's given me way more tools for classroom management and success for kids on self-regulating than I've ever had before.
Wonderful. Katelyn, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I don't think so. Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful talking about kindergarten.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with Educalm Classroom, especially in kindergarten, because we get a lot of questions about that. Like you said, the young kids, they have big emotions, and it must be really difficult and a challenge as an adult to always be able to support all those kids in the classroom. So thank you for sharing your experience and your tips and the ways that you're using it. I think our listeners are going to really walk away with great ideas of how to integrate mindfulness in their own classrooms. So thank you.
Anytime. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Also, I just want to end by saying I wish I could go back to kindergarten and be in your classroom.
It would be fun. I know. I think that I want to go back to K. This is fun.
That's great. Thank you so much, Katelyn. What a wonderful interview. So many takeaways there. Hopefully you guys have lots of great ideas rolling around in your mind now for how you can bring mindfulness into your classroom, whether you're teaching the kinders, grade 2, or maybe even ideas if you're in high school. It's always nice to hear what other people are up to. It kind of gets that creativity ball rolling. Now, your exit ticket for today is to sign up for the Educalm Classroom free trial if you haven't done so already. go to educalm.com/free and register for the free trial. Now, when you sign up for the free trial, you are going to get unlimited access. So the trial never ends. You have access to what's in the free trial forever. And you are going to get training for yourself on how to integrate this practice into your classroom with success. It's going to give you some resources that are going to help you to communicate with admin, communicate with parents, etc. Everything that you need to really get this planned for your classroom. And then you're also going to get access to the first unit of our Educalm classroom program, Introduction to Mindfulness. So this is going to give you guided audios for your classroom. There are 2-minute and 5-minute versions, so you can choose the length that fits for your age group or fits with your intention of how you want to use this. And you're going to have 4 to 5 weeks at least worth of content there to use in your classroom. So ready to use audios and also printables. We've got lesson plans in there for you to give you lots of ideas of how you can go even further with this practice in your classroom. There are printable posters. Katelyn talked a little bit about how she uses the posters in her classroom. And there is also a little activity and student reflection booklets, so you can take this into your regular teaching curriculum. So the free trial is jam-packed full of ready-to-use, zero prep goodness for you. It can be as simple as just using the audios. It can be as deep as using all the printables that are available for you there as well. So go to educalm.com/free to register for your free trial. And when you register before February 15th, 2020, you're going to be entered to win a 12-month membership to Educalm Classroom. So we're celebrating our new website with this fun giveaway. Go to educalm.com/free to sign up. Educalm is spelled EDUCALME. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. We are so happy that you're part of this Educalm community. If you've enjoyed this show and you got value from it, share it with someone else that you think might enjoy it. Have an awesome week.